This is not just a story. This could be your life. If you are watching this right now, maybe you know this feeling already. The feeling of standing on the outside, looking in. The feeling of wanting more, but not knowing how to reach it. My name is Liam, and this is where my story begins. I was born in a small, dusty town where people didn't talk about dreams. They talked about bills, work, and getting through the month. We were not poor in the way movies show poverty, but we were always close to it. Close enough to feel fear when the rent was due. Close enough to count coins before buying bread. Close enough to know that one small problem could break everything. My father was a mechanic. Every day, he worked long hours with his hands covered in oil and dirt. His back was always tired, his face always serious. He never complained, but his silence said enough. My mother was the real engine of our home. She woke up before sunrise, cooked, cleaned, managed money, and still found a way to smile at me. She carried the weight of the family quietly, without ever asking for help. We lived in a rented one-bedroom house. One small fan, one table, one bed. The walls were thin, and the space felt smaller every year. But inside my chest, something kept growing. A dream that felt too big for that house, too big for that town, too big for a boy like me. Every evening, I stood by the window. It became my favorite place. I watched cars pass by on the main road. Shiny cars, expensive cars, Mercedes, BMWs, windows down, music playing, people laughing inside. I wasn't angry. I wasn't jealous. I was curious. I kept asking myself one question again and again. How do people get a life like that? What do they know that we don't? And will life ever choose someone like me? While other kids played football in the street, I walked 3 kilometers to a small cyber cafe. I didn't go there to play games. I went there to watch, to stare at the screens, lines of code, bright interfaces, people creating things with their minds. One day, I heard a word that changed my life forever. Software engineer. It sounded like magic. People who didn't lift heavy things. They built worlds with ideas. In that moment, something inside me locked into place. I didn't fully understand it, but I knew one thing clearly. I want to become one of them. The problem was simple and brutal. I had no computer at home, no internet. My English was weak. I didn't know a single person in technology. I had nothing except belief. And belief doesn't pay rent. One night, I lay in bed and heard my parents talking quietly in the next room. They thought I was asleep. My mother said, "He's a good boy, but college is expensive." My father sighed and answered, "Maybe he should just take a job after school. Help the family." I stared at the ceiling, my chest tight. I didn't cry. I didn't move. But something cracked inside me. How do you chase a dream when the people you love are barely surviving? At 17, I made a choice that hurt more than any rejection. I placed my dream in a quiet corner of my heart and picked up a security guard uniform. I told myself it was temporary. Just for now. Just to help. Just to survive. That night, I stood in front of a tall glass building at 9 p.m., holding a wooden stick, wearing a brown uniform. Inside, the lights were warm. People typed on computers. They built the future. Outside, the wind was cold, and I stood still. I became the boy who once dreamed of building the world, now guarding it from the outside. But every night, as I looked up at those shining windows, I whispered to myself, "This is not the end, Liam. You are not finished. You are only paused." And deep inside, the dream was still awake. Night became my real home. Every evening at exactly 9, I stood in front of the same glass building, the same cold wind cutting through my thin uniform, the same city noise slowly fading as people went home. The building looked like a giant mirror. On the outside, I saw my own reflection, tired eyes, straight posture, a wooden stick in my hand. On the inside, I saw a different world. Bright lights, clean desks, people typing, laughing softly, solving problems that mattered. They were software engineers. I was the night guard. They walked past me with laptops on their backs and ID cards on their chests. Some nodded politely. Some didn't see me at all. None of them knew that every step they took inside that building was a life I wanted so badly it hurt. I wasn't angry at them. I studied them. The way they talked. The confidence in their walk. The calm in their voices. I told myself, one day, I will walk in like that. But for now, my life was paused. Not stopped. Paused. I wasn't quitting my dream. I just wasn't allowed to move forward yet. That thought kept me standing straight on nights when my legs shook from exhaustion. I worked 12-hour shifts. No music. No warmth. Just silence, broken by footsteps and the hum of electricity inside the building. When the city slept, my mind stayed awake. I owned one small, second-hand smartphone. The screen was cracked. The battery barely lasted 2 hours. It couldn't play games, but it could open YouTube. That was enough. During my breaks, I sat on the cold floor of the parking lot and searched for answers. What is coding? How to become a software engineer? HTML tutorial for beginners. Many videos buffered forever. Many words sounded strange. My English was weak, my understanding slower. Still, I watched. At night, using cheap mobile data, I downloaded free coding PDFs. In the morning, after my shift ended, I read them by candlelight because electricity was expensive. I slept 4 hours a day, sometimes less. My eyes burned. My head ached. I didn't understand most of what I read, but I kept going. Every sentence felt like a small step toward a door I couldn't see yet. People noticed my exhaustion. They laughed. Relatives said, "He's just a security guard now. Why is he dreaming so big?" Friends said, "Coding is for smart people. Be realistic." One night, my father looked at me across the dinner table and said quietly, "Son, some people are meant to dream. Others are meant to survive. We need money." He didn't mean to hurt me. He was tired. Life had taught him to be careful with hope. I nodded. I said nothing. But inside, something hardened. Nights grew heavier. One evening, after 2 days without real sleep, I couldn't understand a single line of code. I stared at my phone, hungry, tired, alone. The building lights above me felt brighter than ever. I leaned against the wall, slid down to the ground, and cried. Not loudly, just silently. Tears dropped onto my uniform as I whispered, "Is it really impossible for someone like me?" That night, at 2:45 a.m., the door opened. A young man walked out early. Clean clothes. Confident steps. One of the engineers. He noticed me sitting with a small notebook filled with messy writing. He stopped and asked, "What are you doing?" I looked up, embarrassed but honest. "I'm trying to learn code." He didn't laugh. He didn't walk away. He paused, smiled, and said, "That's brave. Really brave." Then he left. That was it. No long speech. No advice. Just one sentence. But it hit me harder than any motivation video ever could. For the first time, someone from the world I wanted to enter didn't look at me like I was crazy. In that moment, I understood something important. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't dreaming too big. I was just early. That sentence gave me fuel. Angry fuel. Focused fuel. I studied harder. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped waiting for support. I became my own teacher. My own motivator. My own proof. I learned that loneliness is part of the price. That belief often comes after effort, not before. And that nothing looks possible at the beginning. Standing there every night, guarding a future that wasn't mine yet, I finally understood the truth. Nothing is impossible, but everything is lonely first. After months of learning in silence, I felt something dangerous growing inside me. Hope. I decided it was time to build something real. Not just watch videos. Not just read PDFs. I wanted proof that I could actually do this. So I chose a simple goal: build a basic website. Nothing fancy. Just HTML and CSS. A few pages. Some text. A button. Something that worked. For 2 weeks, my life disappeared into code. I wrote lines at night. I rewrote them in the morning. I tested. I failed. I tried again. Sometimes I didn't even go to bed after my night shift. I sat on the floor with my phone, typing carefully, afraid to make mistakes. Every line felt important. Every page felt like a step closer to the life I wanted. Then came the moment. With shaking hands, I clicked run. The screen went white. Error. I refreshed. Nothing. I checked again. Still nothing. One small mistake. One missing line of code. And everything I had worked on disappeared. 2 weeks of effort collapsed into a blank screen. My chest tightened. My hands dropped. I felt empty. That night, I didn't go home. I sat on the stairs outside the building I guarded, my head in my hands, thinking, maybe they're right. Maybe some people are not meant to change their lives. A week later, my father handed me an envelope. Inside was a pamphlet from a factory. Full-time work. Stable pay. No night shifts. He said gently, "This could help us. Maybe it's time." I understood him. He wasn't killing my dream. He was protecting the family. But that night, lying on my thin mattress, one question kept repeating in my head. If I give up now, will I regret this forever? Not tomorrow. Not next year. Forever. The answer scared me more than failure. So I stood up. I reopened the files. I didn't rush this time. I read every line slowly. I tested each part. I learned why the error happened. I learned how mistakes actually teach you if you let them. And then, quietly, the website worked. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't impressive. But it worked. That small, ugly website felt like a victory bigger than anything I had ever owned. It was my proof. Proof that I wasn't dreaming blindly. Proof that effort could turn into results. That night, for the first time, I slept without fear. Then I made another decision. A scary one. I started applying for internships and junior jobs. I didn't have a degree. No certificates. No connections. Weak English. Still, I sent my story to more than 80 companies. I didn't hide my past. I didn't pretend to be perfect. I just told the truth. The replies came slowly. And painfully. Some never answered. Some said I wasn't qualified. Some rejected me politely. Others didn't bother being polite. 79 rejections. Each one felt like a door closing in my face. But I told myself, I don't need every door. I just need one. Then one email arrived. It didn't say no. It said, "Your journey is different. Let's talk." I read it 3 times to make sure it was real. For 7 days, I prepared like my life depended on it. I practiced answers in front of a mirror. I wrote sentences again and again. I watched interview videos. I memorized explanations. I barely slept. When the day came, I looked at my clothes and froze. I didn't own a formal shirt. So I went in my security guard uniform. When the interviewer asked, "Tell me about yourself," I didn't try to impress him. I didn't lie. I said, "I work nights as a security guard. And during those nights, I study code because I want to become something I've never seen around me." The room went silent. Then he smiled and said, "You're not what we expected, but you're exactly what we're looking for." They offered me an internship. Unpaid. I didn't hesitate. The next day, I entered a tech office for the first time not as a guard, but as a learner. No stick. No uniform. Just a cheap shirt and a heart full of fire. I sat at a desk. I touched a real computer. I looked around and realized something quietly incredible. I was no longer watching from the outside. I was finally inside. That was the first door. The first day of my internship didn't feel like success. It felt like fear. I walked into the office early, my heart beating too fast, my hands cold. Everyone around me looked confident. Clean clothes. Laptops covered with stickers. Easy laughter. They spoke fast, joked in English, used words I barely understood. I sat down quietly at my desk and tried to disappear into the chair. Inside, one thought kept repeating. What if they realize I don't belong here? I was different, and I knew it. Most of my teammates had college degrees. Some had studied abroad. They talked about professors, projects, internships, things I had only seen on YouTube. When they discussed code, they spoke with comfort. When I listened, my brain worked twice as hard just to keep up. My English felt slow. My hands felt heavy. Every time someone asked a question, my chest tightened. This was my dream. But inside the dream, I felt like a stranger. The fear had a name. Imposter syndrome. Every day, I worried that someone would tap me on the shoulder and say, "We made a mistake." I was afraid to ask questions because I didn't want to look stupid. So during meetings, I stayed quiet. During lunch, I ate fast and Googled words I didn't understand. I learned silently, desperately, like someone trying not to drown. One afternoon, during a casual break, a senior engineer asked me, "So Liam, where did you study? Which college?" The question felt like a spotlight. The room went quiet. I took a breath and said the truth. I didn't go to college. I was working nights as a security guard before this. For a second, no one spoke. Some looked surprised. Some impressed. One nodded slowly and changed the subject. But that silence stayed with me. It wasn't cruel. It was heavy. It reminded me that the door had opened, but staying inside was now my responsibility. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed up, studying harder than ever. I stopped feeling sorry for myself. I stopped wishing things were easier. I made a rule, no complaining. Only action. If my English was weak, I practiced more. If I didn't understand something, I learned it alone at night. If others were faster, I became more careful. I accepted that this phase wasn't about comfort. It was about survival. Then came the moment that changed everything. One morning, my manager mentioned a bug in the product. A real problem. Something users were complaining about. Several people had looked at it. No solution yet. He said casually, "If anyone wants to try, feel free. No pressure." I didn't raise my hand. I just took notes. That night, I took the code home. I read it line by line. I searched forums. I watched videos. I tested ideas. I failed. I tried again. I barely slept. My eyes burned, but my focus was sharp. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was trying to prove something to myself. 2 days later, the bug was gone. I sent my solution quietly to my manager. No long message. No explanation. Just the fix. He didn't reply right away. Hours passed. Then I got a short message. "Good work." That was it. No applause. No celebration. But something shifted. After that, I noticed small changes. People started asking my opinion. My manager trusted me with slightly bigger tasks. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was still scared, still learning, still behind in many ways, but I was moving forward. A few weeks later, my manager called me into his office. My stomach dropped. I thought this was the end. Instead, he smiled and said, "We'd like to offer you a paid contract." It wasn't much money, but it felt like everything. When the first payment entered my bank account, I stared at the screen for a long time. That number wasn't just salary. It was proof. Proof that my nights mattered. That my struggle wasn't foolish. That my dream had weight. That evening, I went home early. The house looked the same. The walls were still thin. The tap still leaked. But I was different. I handed my father the money. He didn't speak. He just held it, his hands shaking slightly. Then he looked at me and said quietly, "You did it." In that moment, something healed. I wasn't a guard trying to escape anymore. I was a builder. Inside the dream, the pressure almost broke me. But it also shaped me. I learned that success doesn't remove fear. It teaches you how to walk with it. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was becoming. Today, when I look at my life, it still feels unreal sometimes. I am no longer the boy standing outside the glass building with a wooden stick in his hand. I am a software engineer. I sit at a desk. I write code that real people use. I help fix problems. I mentor interns who remind me of myself years ago, quiet, nervous, hungry to learn, afraid they don't belong. And every time I see that fear in their eyes, I smile. Because I know exactly where it comes from. Sometimes after work, I take a long way home. I pass the old building where I once worked as a night guard. The lights are still bright. The glass still shines. And there is always someone new standing at the gate, tired, silent, invisible to the world rushing past him. I don't stop the car. I don't go in. I just slow down for a moment and look. That image keeps me grounded. It reminds me where I started. It reminds me that nothing I have today was given to me for free. The first real salary I earned didn't change my life overnight, but it changed something deeper. I didn't buy fancy clothes. I didn't celebrate in a restaurant. I went home and bought a new fan for my parents' house because the old one barely worked. I bought my father a proper bed because his back had carried too much for too long. I bought my mother a simple phone so she could call me anytime without worry. And for the first time in years, we bought groceries without checking every price tag. That night, my mother smiled without stress in her eyes. That smile was worth more than any luxury. Later, I bought my first car. Nothing expensive. Nothing impressive. But when I held the keys, my hands shook. I remembered the boy who once stood by the window watching other people's cars pass by, wondering if life would ever choose him. That day, life did choose me. Not because I was special, but because I stayed when quitting felt easier. Here is the truth I learned the hard way. Success is not about money. Money is just a tool. The real reward is dignity, the ability to stand straight, the ability to look at your parents without guilt, the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I didn't give up. History is full of people who were ignored, laughed at, underestimated. Albert Einstein was told he would never succeed. Thomas Edison failed again and again before the world saw light. Neil Armstrong was told space exploration was impossible. None of them waited for permission. None of them waited for approval. They moved forward while the world doubted them. And maybe you are in that place right now. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you feel invisible. Maybe people around you don't believe in your dream. Maybe they tell you to be realistic, to settle, to survive instead of dream. Listen to me carefully. If a night security guard with no money, no degree, weak English, and zero connections could change his life, why not you? Why not your story? Why not your dream? It will be lonely. It will be slow. You will doubt yourself. You will cry quietly when no one is watching. But if you keep going, one day your results will speak so loudly that no one can ignore you anymore. This story is not about me. It is about proof. Proof that nothing is impossible. Proof that dreams don't die unless you abandon them. Proof that your starting point does not decide your ending. The world may not believe in you at first, but you don't need the world. You just need to believe long enough for your actions to catch up. So don't quit. Don't lower your dream. Don't let one hard chapter convince you the whole book is bad. And if this story touched something inside you, take one small action today. Believe a little more. Work a little longer. And if you want more stories that rebuild your mindset and improve your English at the same time, subscribe to this channel. Not for me, but as a promise to yourself. Because your story is still being written. And the best part hasn't happened yet.